All right, sir. Shall we begin the session, sir?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all for the webinar series of LegalVox. I hope everyone is fit and fine in this tough times of COVID-19. LegalVox has been trying to come up with more and more interactive and interesting webinars since the lockdown has started. And this is our 14th to 15th webinar which LegalVox has come up with. And today the topic for the webinar is pursuing career in the cyber laws. And the speaker for today with us is Advocate Sai Sushanth, who is a cyber law expert and a techno-legal consultant. He is the CEO of Sushanth IT Law Associates, a cyber law consulting firm. He is an academician, author, corporate trainer, avid speaker, legal mentor, and has been advising clients across the globe on the intersection of law and technology. He has spoken in 600 plus national and international conferences and has published articles in international journals on various techno-legal matters. Indeed, it's an honor to have you, sir, here with us. And it could have been no one else except you who could have did the justice on this topic. I request sir to take over. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invite. Please, sir.
Thank you so much. A very good evening to all of you who are part of this webinar. First of all, I'm so glad that we have a lot of good cyber law enthusiasts in this group. I'm extremely happy for that. And then I'm really happy that more specifically that a lot of students are really getting interested in this area of legal practice, which is entirely different. And I know I would like to clarify some misconceptions also, because I see the moment you look at cyber law, I mean, there's a kind of frightening effect that students have. They feel that it's something that's completely out of the domain, and then it's only fit for engineers or somebody who's totally a techie. But I just would like to clarify that, and then I thought I'll share some of my perspectives. And also not just that, shall I say that in the present moment of COVID-19 and pandemic situation, I think cyber law jurisprudence will be an entirely different ballgame altogether. And it's going to be bringing in a completely new legal order that we're likely to see. I believe we are all in the stage of voyage. And then once we are victorious against coronavirus, there's going to be a completely new evolving cyber legal world order. So that's what I feel. So let me just start off with the positive connotation. So I just want to understand that, you know, this is a very different kind of subject altogether. Unlike the other legal subjects that you've been going through in your curriculum, I think this is one area which is entirely distinct. You know why? If I were to put it like this, a law is supposed to be one of the most boring areas. Why? Because it's here for centuries. And more specifically, when you look at the traditional legal practice versus the new generation legal practice, I think it's entirely a different ballgame altogether. I call this as a new generation legal practice because the law is a very young law. It's only about 20 years. So maybe some of you may be 20. So shall I say it's the law that is born along with you. So it's a very, very new generation law, and it's seen a variety of different paradigms in it. And there's just nothing that is not covered under the cyber law today. So let's go through that, and then let's try to understand the ambit and scope of pursuing cyber law as a career option. Could you just move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, I traditionally thought of just talking to you about some things. Okay. If you're using these 7 things, I think cyber law is applicable. If you're using computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data or information in the electronic format, lo and behold, because the cyber law is now going to be made applicable. What does that mean to you? It means that whenever anybody makes use of this, there's an element of cyber law. Why? Because you will now be covered under the ambit and scope of cyber law. So today, I think there is nobody who's not digitally available, whether on computers or computer systems, or there's nobody who's not using internet or a mobile phone today. So that being the scope, I think the kind of issues that are cropping up are going to be completely challenging, and it's going to be a completely interesting facet, because with computers, mobile phones, and internet becoming a part of our lives, I think cyber law has also become integral part of our life, with or without our knowledge. So this is the kind of scope that it has. So I just would like to talk about some things in detail as we go forward. Next slide, please. So this, in short, is something on cyber law. We have in India a mother legislation, shall I say, called Information Technology Act 2000. Why I came up with this term called mother legislation is, I feel it's one of the most three distinctive laws that have been passed by independent India. So one is, of course, the Constitution, then the Indian Penal Code, and of course, then would come the Information Technology Act. Why? Because anything that is digital today is covered under the broad ambit of cyber law, more specifically Information Technology Act 2000. Why? The main objective, or shall I say the preamble of the act, is very clear. It's not here to provide punishments for cyber crimes, because a lot of misconception among people is cyber law is only relating to cyber crimes, and then it talks about the various kinds of penalties, it talks about the different kinds of imprisonments and the like. But shall I say, that's not the exact objective behind the law. Whatever that you're doing today using electronic means, whether it's doing your banking transactions or doing the documentation, whether doing contracts or whether doing business, everything, the main objective behind this law is to provide legal recognition to electronic transactions as also electronic records. Not just that, to give a boost towards e-commerce, because in those times, 20 years back, there was nothing in India which could be a boost to e-commerce. So this was the only law that had come up with an intention of providing legal recognition and also boosting e-commerce, and also to promote e-governance. These are the fundamental aspects of the Information Technology Act. But however, in addition to the same, it has also stipulated certain cyber crimes and laid down the penalties and imprisonments thereof. But ultimately, it's not a penal statute just like IPC or the criminal law, which is here only to provide penal statute. So shall I say that it's only one dimension that you're looking at, and there are broad areas that one could look at from a cyber law perspective. So not just that, there was an amendment made in the year 2008, and then correspondingly, there were also some rules and regulations that were made there under. And one of the most important thing that I would like to focus here is IT Rules 2011. So they're also going to play a vital and key role in cyber law practice. And then I will also discuss how the practice areas are and what could be the possible options. Next slide, please. So as a career, I would say we have multiple options. The sky is the limit in terms of opting out for career. Because like I said, the moment there is a computer, there is internet and mobile phone, so clearly cyber law is applicable. No matter what is the kind of business, whether it's the traditional business or whether it's the IT sector or whether it's any brick and mortar sector or anything. So basically, I would like to tell you that anywhere where these three elements are actually used, cyber law is applicable there. And more specifically, that as a career option, there are a variety of career options available to you. You can start up independent practice. First thing, you can also get into arbitration if you're interested in resolving that. Not just that, there are also domain names that are actually now playing a very important role, because with everybody on the internet, domain name disputes also going to be turning out to be one of the great areas that we could consider. And then that's happening. A lot of arbitration work is happening because given the fact that internet has made geography as a history, there are going to be lots of legal challenges in terms of cyber law. And more specifically, the variety of cyber legal issues are enormous. Why? Because anywhere across, you could just sit and start operating, whether it's the e-commerce, whether it's doing transactions with countries, whether it's the cross-border issues, whether it's transnational issues and the like, there's going to be enormous scope. And more specifically, dispute resolution in terms of cyber law are going to be playing a very, very key role. And more specifically in terms of arbitration. So arbitration in terms of cyber law also is a good career option. And not just that, you could join a law firm as an associate who's completely into this or who's having cyber law as one of their practice areas. And then you could also start doing corporate legal practice. So that means what? You can join a corporate company who's specifically into the domain of technology, and then you could start getting yourself enrolled as a legal professional into corporate legal practice. Then you could also now look at options of R&D. Why? Because there are lots of avenues open because of the distinct discipline and distinct kind of nature of cyber laws that are open today. I'll also be sharing few of these details. And of course, you can also get into the cyber law litigation. So shall I say litigation is not largely to an extent that is developed. Okay, there are only very few cases in terms of litigation, but however, slowly litigation is also trying to see its way towards cyber law. So these are some general career options that you could actually have in place in order to go for your career in cyber law. So not just that, there are a variety of options that are there out of the box. I'll also share with you some of them. Next slide, please. Now, apart from just having cyber law, okay, if you're having interest towards other areas of legal practice, shall I say that cyber law is nothing but an interdisciplinary of all the legal subjects. So like I said, you can just in short call cyber law as an E prefix to any particular legal practice, whether it's going to be intellectual property, whether it's going to be criminal law, it's going to be family law, whether it's going to be evidence law, or it's going to be banking law. So these are some of the areas which you can actually use as what do you say, go hand in hand with the area of practice of cyber law. Why? Because everything, there's an use of electronic devices, whether it's computers, internet, and the domain. So it's going to be a completely different paradigm as we go forward. Now, when you look at intellectual property, I think we are very clear. There's a lot of content related issues happening across. There are lots of companies, websites, applications, platforms that are actually looking out for intellectual related issues in cyberspace. So we have copyright issues, we'll have trademark issues, and also there could be a lot of innovative approaches that companies are trying to use with regard to the emerging technologies. So you could also be one such person who can advise any company on the cross section of cyber law and intellectual property. Why? Because a lot of innovation is in terms of technology. A lot of people are looking for advisory roles, and also people who are into protection of IP along with their protection of their company's matters. So cyber law and IP could also be one of the very good areas that you as a cyber law student or as an enthusiast can actually try to pursue, given the fact that there's a lot of intellectual property generated out of any data that is there in the electronic or digital format. Not just that, with companies taking up transactions and doing business over the internet, there'll be a lot of intellectual property that is generated. IP protection will also be one of the key areas, whether by way of copyright, trademark, or whether there are also other areas of innovation. So patent also could be one of the key areas that you could look at in terms of online and cyber law practice. Not just that, if you're interested towards getting into litigation, yes, cybercrime and criminal law will give you a variety of options to explore, because now you see that there are a variety of cyber crimes that are occurring on a day-to-day basis, whether it's the private sector, whether it's the government, whether it's the Fortune 500 companies, whether it's a lot of issues that are happening across in terms of cyber crimes. That will also be one of the fascinating areas, shall I say, for career option. Well, if you're interested towards family law, okay, don't get disappointed. Cyber law is holding a very important place even in terms of family law. Why? Because today all the issues and litigation that is arising out of family law is largely dependent on something called digital evidence. Why? Whether it's the SMS, whether it's the WhatsApp conversations, whether it's the social media chats, or whether it's anything that is happening across, cyber law and electronic evidence are also playing a very important role in terms of negotiating, litigating family law issues. And evidence is also going to play a very important role, because we've been seeing that a lot of digital evidence is now coming to the court for the purpose of a variety of offenses. And then getting into digital evidence as one of the career options is also going to be a very important and a different domain altogether as you go forward. And not just that, there are a lot of banks that are actually now trying to have their own applications. They have e-wallets, they have mobile applications, they have e-banking, they have mobile banking and the like. And they're also looking at people who can advise them on the cyber crimes legalities relating to the banks and the banking domains. So this is also one more key area, shall I say, that's now be getting popular with a lot of banks turning to the electronic and the net banking for the purpose of their operations. So these are some things that are actually, which could be also looked at in addition to exclusive cyber law practice. Next slide, please. Now, cyber law as a discipline will bring in a variety of issues, like I said. Now, getting into the government is also one area. There are lots of opportunities for cybercrime prosecutors today. Now, when you look at it, because a variety of cyber crimes are actually happening, you can get into cybercrime investigation. See, cyber law as a discipline is entirely going to be bringing in a variety of different aspects in together. Why? And more specifically, shall I say, cyber law and cyber security go hand in glove. So one of the most important aspects that cyber law has is also cyber security. And now with cyber security law being the new legal paradigm, there's a lot of work happening across the world on cyber security laws. Countries have now decided that it's high time that they come up with different legislations in the domain of cyber security and regulatory and legal aspects. So that's also going to play a very, very key and vital role. And then one another aspect that you can look at is cybercrime investigation. So cybercrime investigation is also going to be very, very interesting. And more so when you have a law background, it's going to be one of the very good areas that you can look at as a career option. And then digital evidence, like I said, is now going to hold a key catalyst, because it's going to be playing a very, very important role in deciding the deciding a variety of cases, whether it's the corporate issues, whether it's the family issues, whether it's the civil matters or criminal matters or anything, because everybody today is going digital. So that also is one of the most important areas that you could actually focus. And then there's also another area that you could actually look at from a legal perspective, that is cyber forensics. Ultimately, the goal, if you look at the definition of forensics here, the whole idea behind the forensic science is to get out some kinds of material from any particular aspect, so as to ensure that these particular material can be used as legal evidence in a court of law. That being so, cyber forensics is also opening up a variety of career options. And more specifically, if you're a lawyer, you would actually have a lot of advantage if you take up for cyber forensics as one of your career options. There are lots of opportunities for cyber forensic professionals, and in the intersection of cyber laws and cyber forensics, we also have some guiding factors. If you're doing a forensic examination of any particular evidence, yes, the IT Act has come up with some regulation stating that it has actually gone ahead and mentioned the standard. If you were to do forensic examination of any evidence, you're first supposed to take a copy of the entire material. So that copy is called as imaging, technically. And in terms of cyber forensics, before you start doing the investigation, forensic investigation and analysis, you would be required to first collect the hash value. So the kind of hash value that is to be collected there from the original, and then once you complete the investigation on the copy, are supposed to be one and the same, to ensure that there is no tampering of any particular data. So in this kind of a scenario, the IT Act has already gone ahead and defined what kind of standard it has to be incorporated. So earlier it was something called MD5, which was the hash value which was legally accepted. Now that has gone away. We have something called SHA1, SHA2, which stands for Secured Hash Algorithm 1, Secured Hash Algorithm 2. So the moment any forensic examiner or forensic professional is doing an investigation, the first thing he would be required to do is, he would be required to first take the hash of the original as also the copy, so as to ensure that he needs to produce this hash report to the court saying that there is no evidence that has been tampered and it's genuine evidence. So that is the kind of scope that forensics has in terms of a career option. And cyber law and cyber forensics can also be an excellent career option, given the fact that both are having some kinds of interrelation. Not just that, there could also be one more area that you could focus on, which is called the cyber law compliance audit. Yes, it's absolutely a new phenomenon. So just like you have the ISO standards for companies and for products, yes, you might have heard of ISO 9001 standard, which is being used by a lot of companies. Now, in the similar fashion, there's also something called ISO 27001, but it's for information security and data security. So now the Information Technology Act, more specifically under Section 43A, read along with information technology rules, has given an option for you to do something called cyber law compliance audit. So you could become an auditor. You could actually try to audit mobile applications, websites, platforms, softwares, and the like. So that's also going to be a very, very interesting discipline that you could take up as a career option, because there are very, very few people in the country. And then you could also take that up largely because there are lots of website, mobile applications, and the like, which are now becoming popular with a lot of people joining the digital bandwagon. So I think these are some things that I thought of just bringing in as a disciplinary area. So there are lots of issues happening around, and these are broadly, shall I say, some areas that you could actually try considering as a career option: cybercrime prosecution, cybercrime investigation, digital evidence analysis, cyber forensics, and cyber law compliance. So I thought of just collating all of these and then putting before you, and then talk about the various kinds of career options that you could make in these areas as well. Next slide, please. Now, the applicability of cyber law is going to be enormous, like we discussed, whether it's e-commerce or whether it's m-commerce, whether it's hyper local startups, your Swiggies or the big baskets, or whether it's the kind of cloud, or whether it's the food tech platforms, or whether it's the cab aggregators, or whether it's anybody who's digital. Yes, you'll increasingly be able to see that there are a variety of applicability. Not just that, there are also a variety of other areas as well. Today, all of us, good, bad, or worst, are part of the cloud ecosystem. Why? Because the moment we are making use of Gmail, I think all of us are also inadvertently making use of a new technology that's called cloud computing. So now there are lots of opportunities that you as cyber lawyers and cyber law enthusiasts could look at as a career option. Cloud computing law is also going to be a very, very interesting domain as you go forward, because with a lot of companies making use of cloud-based data storage and cloud-based platforms, like you have the SaaS-based platforms, where you might have heard of a word called software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. So a lot of these things are growing up, and then there are lots of platforms that are now being made that are making use of cloud computing. And not just that, there is also one more area that would be talking about is the big data analytics. Now, big data analytics is also putting up a lot of legal challenges. And then because big data ultimately is populating a lot of data, and then that data is used for a variety of purposes, whether it be for analyzing the particular behavior or the trend, or understanding the consumer's behavior. A lot of companies are indulging in data analytics. So doing data analytics and cyber law can also be one of the very good career options that one could look at in terms of pursuing their career in cyber law. So this is one more area that is going to be completely different altogether. Next slide, please. Now, there are also a lot of sub-disciplines that are emerging in terms of cyber law. So as cyber law, like I said, there's going to be a completely different ball game altogether. And now with the growing adoption of technology and digital means, it's leading to a lot of sub-disciplines. You could look at e-commerce law with a lot of e-commerce websites coming in. You could look at social media law. There are lots of cutting edge issues that are happening around social media. You could look at mobile law and the mobile ecosystem, with mobiles becoming the center stage of our lives, and also mobile applications, which are also trying to come up and be a part of our integral life. Today, I think there is nobody here without a mobile smartphone, and then more specifically, without being on WhatsApp, right? So everybody is on WhatsApp, and I see that there is nobody here without a smartphone. That being so, mobile law is also going to be one of the very good disciplines that is emerging, and then that could also be taken up as a career option. So mobile law does not only confine itself to one particular aspect. Yes, there are lots of contracts that have been generated. We'll also talk about the contractual aspects. But however, trying to tell you that this also could be one of the areas that you could look into. And not just that, there are also something called the TRAI regulations, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India regulations. So that also goes hand in hand with mobile law. And then you could also try taking up some kinds of specialization in this area. So that will also opens up a variety of career options. So cybercrime law, like I said, could also be one of the key areas that one can look at when you are more interested towards getting into litigation, and more so in the light of criminal law and family law. So this is also one of the key, the subdiscipline that is coming up. There are lots of these subdisciplines that are evolving as you go by. But however, I thought of just collating some of them. So I thought of just putting them across a slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, no, not just that, blockchain, shall I say, is now becoming the new flavor of the times. Why? Because with everybody trying to make use of blockchain for different variety of purposes, whether it's for the insurance, banking sector, it's the government, even land records, right? Basically, so I'll also put up one example here so as to make you aware of a blockchain here. See, now blockchain relates to the classic concept of distributed ledger. So all of us, let's take the example of this webinar, okay? All of us who are part of this webinar would be able to see the slides, right? So that means the host is providing you with this option. You would be able to see it. But however, could anybody outside the webinar perspective be able to access the slides? No. So shall I say, considering the whole concept of this webinar as a blockchain, I think all of us are blocks, and we are all connected thanks to the host, that we are all connected here through this application. And then we're all chained, and then we are able to look at this. So shall I say, this is a clear case of blockchain. So everybody who's been there in the chain would be able to see this particular slide. So they will have access to this. But at the same time, this is not visible to outsiders. Okay, now as a person who is able to see that, can you modify the slide? No, you cannot modify the slides. Why? Because you do not have the access to that. Who has the access to it? Only the relevant person, that is the host. So typically, shall I say, this is the kind of technology that is coming up. So there are blocks. So block is nothing but a kind of data that we generate. So every block can consist of this data, and we are all connected in through the chain, which is nothing but this webinar. So here it's nothing but making use of cryptocurrency. So that is also going to be one of the key areas that you could look at, with cryptocurrency being the new shall I say, toast to the times, because there are lots of opportunities and avenues open. So I can also tell you that you can also get specialized in the area of cryptocurrency, crypto assets, and blockchain in order to take that as a career option. Not just that, artificial intelligence, if not already, has now become a part and parcel of our life. And shall I say that each one of us are, good, bad, or worse, going to be sucked into the concept of artificial intelligence. So this is also going to be playing a key and a crucial role when we talk about AI as a separate legal discipline. So it brings in a lot of variety issues. There are lots of interesting avenues that you can look at. And then now, yesterday, I was also a part of a webinar where we were discussing about using of artificial intelligence in justice dispensation system. That means courts. So we all, to my surprise, I was just shocked when I was looking at this scenario. Estonia, a country, has now tried to bring in the concept of artificial intelligence court. That means the judges are AI judges. So what happens here? You will have to feed in your facts through the data, and based on your argument, the AI device will decide and come up with appropriate judgment. No, not just that. If you agreed with this judgment, you can make an appeal to the human judge. So that's the way in which the law, the legislature, as well as the judiciary is now trying to give you a new path. And now with this pandemic situation, you could see that lots of courts have now taken the virtual route, and then a lot of arguments and filing is happening over the electronic means. So this could also be one of the key areas that we could consider. Internet of Things is also one more area. I don't know whether you heard of Amazon Alexa or Google Home, or for that matter, any of your smart devices, whether it's your home automation, whether it's your IoT devices like these Amazon Home and Amazon Alexas and Google Homes, or in case you're making use of automatic smart washing machine. Yes, that is also one more area. Any device that is connected or capable of getting connected to the internet can become an internet, or can become an IoT device. And now with IoT becoming the new future of the times, shall I say, everything is now going to be turning to be IoT. Now, not just that, IoT is also going to bring in a lot of legal issues, more so in the specific light of privacy, legal compliance, data protection, and the like. So Internet of Things also could be one of the practice areas that you could look at with the growing trends. Not just that, shall I say that robotics is also turning out to be one of the very good areas in artificial intelligence. AI chatbots. I've authored this book on AI chatbots, which is available on Amazon, wherein I try to bring about the cutting edge legal issues which are arising out of the cross section of artificial intelligence and law. So a lot of work is happening in this area, and still we do not have any specific legislation either in blockchain or in artificial intelligence or in Internet of Things. So you as a cyber law enthusiast could actually be trying to consider this as one of your career options, because there are lots of companies who are making use of these IoT devices for a variety of purposes. Not just that, with the telemedicine being the new normal of the world, I think this is going to be completely a different paradigm. The concept of telemedicine is nothing but making use of the internet, the technology, and the platforms for the purpose of doing medical consultations. Therefore, in this period of pandemic, the government of India has notified certain rules on the 25th of March 2020, which are specifically talking about telemedicine. So in short, shall I say that almost all the aspects, primary key aspects relating to telemedicine, bring in relation towards cyber law as a discipline. Why? Because an emphasis has been made with regard to the privacy, with regard to the data, with regard to the maintenance of records, online and e-prescriptions. A lot of emphasis has been given to Information Technology Act and IT Rules 2011. So that's the kind of ambit that telemedicine has also come up with. So this also could be one of the few areas. And if you're, shall I say, in the last year of your LLB, I think this could be a fantastic area that you could consider, because it's now going to be very interesting with a lot of doctors, hospitals, and medical professionals making use of telemedicine. Yes. I have a lot of questions. I would love to take them up after the session, please. Now, just go to the previous slide, please. Yeah. Now, not just that, now a lot of startups are giving you a variety of options, especially thanks to this COVID-19. You can actually take the advantage of the pandemic situation if you're in the final year. Why? Because there are lots of startups who cannot really afford for big lawyers, and they're actually looking out for legal advisors in terms of advising them on the various issues. So one more option, shall I say, that you could consider is cyber law and startups. There are a lot of startups who are making use of technology, whether it's having websites, platforms, or shall I say, softwares, or any kinds of applications. So one of the good career options that you could do in this kind of a scenario is could be an advisor. You could also look at compliance. You could look at drafting out various documents, and then you could also provide them with a review and opinion on various amount of issues. So that being so, I think a lot of startups also are now looking for cyber lawyers as their advisors. So if you could probably take that up as a career option, I think that could be the starting point. More specifically, shall I say, with people who do not have any background of law or legal practice, that's a fantastic option. And now, thanks to the social media, you have lots of groups, startup groups that are there on Facebook and WhatsApp, and more specifically in the domain of the online startups. So you could probably join the community, look at the way how posts have been made, and typically you could probably try to make that as a career option. So this also I thought of sharing with you as one of the very good career options that is being made available thanks to cyber law. Next slide, please. Now, cyber law and contracts, there is also going to be one of the fundamental areas that you could actually focus on. If you're very good at contracts, drafting contracts, then I would say that it's an excellent time that you can focus on e-contracts. Why? Because there are lots of companies who are looking out for e-contracts, and then there are lots of applications which require e-contracts. So there are now a lot of mobile applications are also having in mobile contracts. The cloud-based contracts, thanks to the cloud-based platforms like SaaS-based platforms. There are also artificial intelligence contracts and blockchain smart contracts that are likely to be evolving as time passes by. Now, this is also one more area that you could look up. as a career option, coming up with e-contracts. So e-contracts are also going to hold a very, very key and a, important role in terms of your career option, because now looking at the way in which the technology is getting itself used and applied, I think there's a very, very good scope of contractual aspects in cyber law. So this also could be ideally some kinds of area that you would actually focus on. So good, better, worse, I think these are some career options that I thought of sharing with you. And then not just that, it doesn't end here altogether. You could also try to get into some other aspect which is completely into cyber security legal compliance. So that's also going to be very, very important aspect that you could look at. So there are lots of companies who are actually looking at the cutting edge combination of cyber law and cyber security as a different paradigm altogether. So that being so, there is also a good opportunity for you that you can also make use of in terms of cyber security, regulatory and legal aspects. Next slide, please. Now, data protection, shall I say, is a new jewel in the crown. Why? Because you might have seen that there is a personal data protection bill that is in the pipeline. Now it's been referred to the Joint Parliamentary Committee. But however, there are a lot of talks that this could be finalized and then it could take effect by the end of this year. So if that being so, it could create a lot of opportunities for you as a data protection legal expert, because there are a variety of legal challenges and issues that are going to arise in terms of these kinds of data protection legislation. Now, right now, the present situation is that in the absence of an exclusive data protection law, yes, now we have something called Section 43A IT Act Compliance Audit, which I was talking to you about, which gives you an opportunity to audit and draft out policies specifically relating to the privacy policy, terms and conditions, user agreements, and the like, which you can make use of in case you're interested in data protection. And not just that, once the personal data protection bill is passed, you could also consider that there could be an audit in that. And there is also now a new position that is open for legal professionals by a lot of companies, which is called data protection officers. Now we have not just this confined to India, but when you look at the European Union, EU, it has come up with something called GDPR. So most of you, I do not know whether you have heard of this. This is one of the very, very key legislations, shall I say, in terms of data protection laws. A lot of countries have been taking this as a model law and are rehashing the principles and the key aspects of GDPR and coming up with their own distinctive data protection laws. Shall I say, even the personal data protection bill also largely takes its provisions from GDPR. So that being so, a lot of opportunity is also given to data protection officers. So people who are aware on this subject, who have a legal background, could be a very good career option that they could look at, because a lot of work has to be done in terms of protecting the data. And not just that, you would also be required to do something called data protection impact assessments under the GDPR. Not just that, even when you look at the personal data protection bill, there is a concept of data protection impact assessment. So data protection could also be one of the key areas that you could look at when you're actually trying to specialize yourself in cyber law and try to take this up as a career option. So these are some things that I thought of just collating with you. And when you talk about cyber forensics, when you talk about the digital evidence analysis, yeah. Now, thanks to the Information Technology Act, there are lots of labs that are being made available. Now you have the NASCOM cyber labs that have been there. You have something called examiners of electronic evidence, which is specifically under Section 79A of the Information Technology Act. And just recently, after 20 years, they have notified certain labs. So CDAC is one, and then, no, I'm sorry, CDAC is not one. The Central Forensic Science Laboratory in Hyderabad is one. The Army Lab in Pune is one. And also one in Gujarat, Forensic Lab is also one. So there have been these three labs which have been given the recognition under Section 79A as examiner of electronic evidence. So you could also try to open up your career options if in case you're interested in towards digital evidence as well as data, cyber forensics. You could get into this. And if you're primarily wanting to have something on forensics, I think CDAC, Center Development for Advanced Computing, has got its forensic lab in Kerala, Trivandrum specifically. And shall I say, it has done a lot of work and then come up with very good indigenous tools with regard to cyber forensic investigation. And they also call upon cyber lawyers for assisting them and also guiding, being part of their organization and drafting out various policies and legal frameworks in terms of cyber forensics and cyber law. That also could be one of the areas that you could actually look at. So these are some things that are now made available. Not just that, there are also certain centers. For example, when you look at the center in Rajiv Gandhi Center for Cyber Laws, it is also having some kinds of development in terms of doing some R&D on cyber law. Not just that, now there are some private organizations also that are actually trying to do something on artificial intelligence and law, blockchain and the law, and they're coming up with the various research parameters. So you could also do something on R&D when, in case you're interested in these areas. So these are some things I thought of just collating with my experience and then sharing with you. And then to give you something about myself, I'm a practicing cyber lawyer, and then I run my own consulting firm called Sushanth IT Law Associates in Hyderabad. We work on the intersection of law and technology. We've been advising a lot of international and national clients on the areas of cyber law, cyber crime, cyber security, and technology related legal matters. So we've been into practice from 8 years, and then there's a variety of work we also do in terms of doing research and development in terms of this. We are also having a variety of clients across the globe, whether it's the US, whether it's the UK, whether it's the Singapore, Malaysia, Mauritius, Australia, New Zealand, Estonia, and then also parts of Saudi, and then Middle East. So we also work a lot on data protection as well. So that being so, I think what I would like to tell you is cyber law as a discipline is a very, very fascinating journey. And then it's going to be a completely different paradigm altogether. It's going to bring in a lot of new manifestations, and it's going to act as a key catalyst with everybody now going digital. You've also seen something on artificial intelligence recently that India has also come up with an AI-based portal, which is an artificial intelligence-based portal, which is launched by our IT minister, Honorable IT Minister. And then there's a lot of work that can happen in terms of the development of artificial intelligence and law. So that could be also one of the areas that you could actually look at, because there are lots of AI-based tools that are companies companies are now trying to make use of and also trying to develop for a variety of purposes. So that is something that I thought of sharing with you. And with a lot of hope and aspiration, let's see that once we get victorious on coronavirus, I think, like I said, we are all going to see a completely different cyber world order altogether. I believe this is going to open up a variety of laws and sub-disciplines are going to be playing a very, very key and an important role as you go forward. So next slide, please. So this is what I wish to tell you. What is necessary is only what is required. So I thought of just pulling in some kinds of career options, and I thought of just sharing it with you and then collating some of my instances that have been coming to me. I'm into a variety of other activities as well. So I've also authored books on cyber law, cyber crime, and cyber security, and the like. And then not just that, what I would like to tell you is that it's a very fascinating space that requires a lot of different bunch of cyber law enthusiasts. And if you're interested in this, you can be rest assured that the future is going to be completely yours. So you cannot be under the assumption that getting inside and shutting outside cannot be the paradigm that we should think at. I think we should like to open up the traditional practice and then try putting your hands in these areas of practice, because looking at the kind of scope and ambit it has got, there's going to be a terrific amount of legal work. Not just that, the work is going to be enormous, but the kind of professionals that are there in the country are only a handful of them. So I believe that this is the way forward, and I think that cyber law is now going to be adding a lot of key colors to the landscape of not just law but also technology. And in an era where we are trying to go digital, I think cyber law is going to be an entirely different phenomenon altogether, and it's going to be spinning a new color to the wheel. So that's all that I intend to provide in my presentation. So now I'm open to questions. I got a lot of questions, so I thought of just first talking to you about the various questions that have been raised. Yes, Are there any resources that you suggest for gaining knowledge in the field of cyber law compliance? Yes, definitely. I would suggest that you look at Information Technology Rules 2011, and shall I say, look at how privacy policies have been drafted, how terms and conditions are, what are the essentials of terms and conditions, what are the essentials of user agreements. Once you look at 43A read along with IT Rules 2011, that could be one of the key areas that you could look at in terms of cyber law compliance. So yes, does agreement on WhatsApp make it valid? Of course, yes. Thanks to Section 10A of the Information Technology Act, which is giving legal recognition to any contract. When you look at Section 10A, it's very clear in saying no contract should be denied legal validity solely because it is in electronic format. That being so, of course, it should satisfy the requirements of the Indian Contract Act relating to the legally enforceable contract, like the lawful subject, lawful age, and then things like that, free consent and things like that. But however, if you do that transactions on WhatsApp, yes, it's going to be legally valid. That's something. How cyber law will protect India, and what role cyber law will play? It's a fantastic question. I think when you look at the news that has recently popped up relating to the ban of the Chinese applications, 59 applications, that's been made possible because of the Information Technology Act. Thanks to Section 1069A of the Information Technology Law that has been allowing the central government to monitor, intercept, disable access to any kinds of application, and in case it's going to be affecting the national security, sovereignty, integrity, defense, and then in case it is affecting any kinds of foreign relations, yes, the government can enforce that kind of a regulation. And then with the digital India, I think cyber law is going to play a very, very predominant role as you go forward. What is the procedure for complaining cybercrime? Yes, that's a very good question. We have cybercrime cells in each state. So we have the cybercrime police stations. Not just that, there is also a separate wing called the cyber police. And in the CID department, also there is something called cybercrime wing. So these two are the authorities who are actually going to take complaints relating to cybercrime, and then they will be investigating the cybercrime related offenses. And in case of any cyber security, we have something called CERTIN. You might have seen in the recent newspaper called Computer Emergency Response Team, which is the nodal agency for actually trying to protect the cyber security of the country. That's also a body which is created under Information Technology Act, more specifically under Section 70B. So CERTIN is also one of the key catalysts in terms of cyber security. Not just that, I mean, one more career option that you could look at is specializing in the areas of e-contracts and digital and electronic signature. Now you will say, digital and electronic signature, what have they got to do with cyber law? Okay, I'll clarify this. Now, all of us know that when you're signing up physical documents, signature is very, very key factor that you will consider in case you have given up consent. So if you're making any kinds of contract physically, signature is a mandate of acceptance. Likewise, any information or any data that is made using this 7 things that I told you, computers, internet, mobile phones, are now going to be called as electronic record, thanks to the Information Technology Act. And in case such electronic records have to be authenticated, they have to be making use of electronic or digital signature. So digital signature is nothing but, it's not the scanned copy of the signature, it's a mathematical digit. So looking at that, you cannot identify the particular output, but looking at the output, you cannot identify the particular signature. But there is something called a digital signature certificate. So there are certifying authorities who give you this digital signature, and then there are also some classes like class 1, class 2, class 3. So if you are filing your income tax, you would actually beyond a certain slab limit, you are supposed to now make use of digital signatures when you're filing up your returns. So that is one of the areas that you could actually look at when you're specializing. Electronic signature. Thanks to the Information Technology Amended Act, it has also come up with electronic signature. So electronic signature is nothing but the dynamics of my thing, like biometric, like there's also something called e-sign which is made available. So typically now the companies are now trying to use a digital and electronic signature for the purpose of entering into contracts. So that could be one of the areas that they could actually look at specializing. And yes, technology, yes. Typically, shall I say that a lot of law firms do not take this up as a critical or shall I say exclusive practice areas. They often club it with telecommunications or media. That's absolutely right. And then BPOs, with the BPOs now being the new facet, I think it's a completely different ball game. Cyber law and BPO are going to be very, very different altogether, and especially when you talk of the data protection aspects. Now, the law has come up with something called sensitive personal data as also personal data. So, the moment any company is processing, handling, storing, or sharing, or transferring any of this sensitive personal data or personal data, they're supposed to actually go for this audit, as well as they're supposed to comply with the Information Technology Act. So we also would require some knowledge on, yes, in case the particular law firm is actually into those areas, yes, then you might be required to have some knowledge on these domains as well, media laws or telecommunication laws. That's why I also mentioned about TRI regulations, right? So that is also one of the areas you could look at. Now, yeah, see, nothing is safe here in the cyber world. SHA1, yeah, that's the only reason. See, earlier we had MD5 as the hash value standard. Now they made it SHA1. But however, SHA2 is also one of the accepted paradigms. Now there is a lot of work that needs to happen even with regard to amending the Information Technology Act. I am of the opinion that this is a constantly evolving paradigm. So yes, likewise, SHA1 also, yeah, there could be a possibility that it could be compromised. So new standard has to be devised in this area. Yes. If in-laws threaten their daughter-in-law on the phone calls after marriage, is it coming? It's not coming under cyber law, but specifically with the light of privacy now being made the fundamental right, I think it's going to be interesting ball game altogether. But the intersection of family law issues coming in place, cyber law, and like I said, when in case the same relates to a mobile phone or a communication device, yes, IT Act may measure. It all depends on the kinds of issues that are happening forward. Cybercrime with common mind, what would be the remedy? Yes, it's an excellent question. There are a variety of remedies available. One thing, you could use your civil remedies, get damages by way of compensation. And then second thing, you could also file criminal cases and send the person to jail. And these are the two things that are available to a common man. Now, what about cyber crimes? Yes, bank accounts, yes. This is a variety of instances. Yes, one of these things, what about cyber crimes where amount taken from the bank accounts is negligible? Yeah, this is a famous kind of cyber crime called salami attacks. Usually what happens is, in those days, we got this case called Ziegler versus Ziegler. So Ziegler was one of the customer in a bank. And then let me tell you what happened. He was one of the customers in a bank, and then he had his own account. And there was a particular person who was operating that account. So usually, because likewise, when you go to the bank regularly, right, you try to develop some kinds of personal relationship with these people, and then they get your work done easily, right? I'm sure you agree to me. So same way, there was one particular gentleman who was regularly interacting with this customer, and then yes, so the customer started developing personal relationship, and then he told the particular employee of the bank that, since he does the transactions regularly, to close his bank account. Okay, the gentleman in the bank said, okay, I've closed the bank account, but however, he has not closed the bank account. So what he started doing is, he started debiting a very marginal amount from every account. It was a huge bank, and it had millions of accounts. So it happened in the Western countries. It had a lot of accounts. So what this person used to do is, at random intervals, he started debiting marginal amounts from various accounts, and then it started getting accumulated in the same account. But the bank audit happened, they came to know that yes, there was a lot of money that was actually accumulated in this account. But however, since everybody in the bank knows that there is a customer by name Ziegler, so they just left it, thinking it's the same customer. But the fraud came into light when the bank manager incidentally met this customer in a coffee shop. So after the audit, this interaction happened, and then the bank manager said, "Thanks, sir. You're maintaining huge amount of deposit with us." Then the customer was surprised. Then he came up and said, "Look, I've already closed my account with your bank. I've informed so and so person." It is then that they started investigating, and they found that yes, there is something that has happened. So this kind of a cybercrime is called salami attack, and it is a very interesting scenario. what is the salary of interns and jobs? See, that's purely, I cannot answer that. It purely depends upon your individual capability and how good is your skill. So shall I say that there is no fixed thing that is available? Online stalking has been, yeah, apart from IPC, yes, you can just call it as under 66 of the Information Technology Act, apart from the 354D that is in IPC. That's the only provision relating to cyber stalking, shall I say. Is there any specialized cyber law in-depth courses? Yes, there are a lot of courses being available. Asian School of Cyber Laws is one that is actually pioneer into this. I've done a variety of programs from them. That could be one of the options. Not just that, this particular organizing committee, this host who's hosting this webinar also, we are also trying to come up with some distinctive courses into the various disciplinary aspects of cyber laws. We're now going to be shortly launching the course on artificial intelligence and law. And then, yes, company secretary. See, I don't see that company secretary is, okay. Just like company secretary and corporate law, yes. Yes, you can do something on cyber security and cyber forensics that could be going hand in hand. You could take up some technical courses on cyber forensics, as also in the light of cyber security to get hand in hand with cyber law. That's what is a good option. I would say yes, that's a good option. But I'll say not just doing a diploma. Try to do an internship in cyber law so that you're going to get yourself acquainted with the practicality. It's not enough if you just have a good academic background, but it's very, very important that you also try to have some practical demonstration. And a lot of programs today, I'm a visiting faculty to a couple of premier institutions like BITS Pilani, Hyderabad National Law University, Kochi, CDAC, of course, I'm a visiting faculty in CDAC Bangalore, and then also one police and defense university in Gujarat. However, due to the paucity of time now, I've not been, I've stopped going for classes, and I'm occasionally taking classes there. So what I suggest is, it's not enough that you take the diploma in cyber law. Your program should be able to give you some analytical and practical knowledge. I don't want to name, but there's a very big law school in the country who's offering their diploma in cyber law. But the sad fact is they have only one class. Everything is given to them through material. And it's a very, very big, popular university. I don't know whether some of you are also part of that law school. I don't want to comment on that, but just would like to tell you one thing that, sorry to tell you that I don't intend to demean the law school, but I just would like to tell you that I have recruited, because we like I said, we have a core area of expertise into cyber laws, and I tried to recruit some of the people from this institute. I was utterly disappointed because no practical knowledge. It's all theory, and a simple problem could not be able to be solved by these people. So that's one of the areas. Yes, downloading movies from torrent. Yes, it's a punishable offense. You can be both a civil and criminal penalty can be issued under the IT Act, specifically under Section 43. You have a variety of activities, and then 66, of course, if you are trying to make use of the same punishment. There are lots of charges that could be coming in, and then yes, common man could be also affected. Yes, definitely, in case you're doing so. See, the very fact that this is not the only kind of, I think there has to be, this is only one form of blocking these applications that you can use of. But I believe that in case you're blocking it, it's not the, it's going to be only a temporary solution, but not a permanent solution. Why? Because if you block one app, there's going to be another app that is coming up. So I think this is one area that constantly approach has to be taken by the government to bring the proper balance on it. And how will the government keep a track? Maybe that's a debatable point altogether, because when you look at most of this, see, I'll also tell you something. I don't know whether you read the terms and conditions of WhatsApp and Facebook. When you look at the terms and conditions of Facebook and WhatsApp, I'll say that they're very clear. Though WhatsApp says it's end-to-end encrypted, when you do a detailed study on the terms and conditions of WhatsApp, I'm very clear in saying that audio, video, image, or text, whatever you share on the social media and WhatsApp is information in public domain. Once it becomes information in the public domain, you can no longer seek a legal remedy for misuse. So that's the kind of scenario that is happening altogether. So yes, are we supposed to know? See, the basic facts of how technology operates would be required, how internet operates, how the computer operates would be required. You don't require a bachelor's degree or you don't require formal education in computer science, but yes, you would have to understand the basic way in which technology works, especially blockchain and in artificial intelligence. Yes, you don't require a technical background, you require a technical understanding, shall I say. So technical understanding along with the legal analysis is the right combination for any of the aspects of cyber law, especially artificial intelligence and blockchain. What should be the permanent solution? See, permanent solution is that I think some kind of checks and balance need to be happening in terms of providing some kind of legal discipline for mobile applications. When you look at TikTok, I'll just share one of the cases that has come to me with regard to TikTok, since everybody today is knows about TikTok. When you look at the terms and conditions of TikTok, you clearly notice that TikTok has the legal right to edit, to cut, to monetize your videos that are created on TikTok. I'll say that one of the, I don't want to name the what do you say company. Yeah. So one of the companies had a marketing agency. So marketing guy basically. So this marketing guy was coming up with innovative approaches. So he thought, let me make a TikTok video so that I can go popular. So what he did was he came up with an innovative approach. He informed the company that this is what is the marketing approach, and he thought, let's not name the company, but let's do it. Let's do a TikTok video so that we can showcase the same towards to the world that I'm innovative in marketing. So what he tried to do was he tried to make a TikTok video, but unfortunately the competitor, because thanks to the terms and conditions of TikTok, cut copy pasted that video, and then he used that video to promote the competitors' products. As a result, this marketing guy lost his job. So that was one interesting scenario that has come to me. And then with great amount of difficulty and adjudication, we then settled the issue altogether. So that is one of the key areas that, shall I say, in terms of some legal compliance and obligations have to be put up on terms of mobile applications. That could be one possible area. And then which is a cyber forensic institute that is offering online courses. You can look at in Asian School of Cyber Laws. There's also IFS, Intense Forensic Services in Delhi, which is providing some good forensic courses. Thank you so much for the session. Okay, my pleasure. Sure, that's my pleasure. We can do something on it, definitely. We can do a detailed one, no problem. Yes, credit card and debit card frauds also come under the ambit of cyber law. And what safeguards? Yes, safeguards would be that, see, one of the key factors are do not shop on websites which are unknown, typically during this period of lockdown. Because the moment you shop on unknown websites, there are going to be lots of frauds that are likely to take place. And phishing is also one of the key areas. That means phishing means it's a kind of cybercrime which replicates the original. So it's a lookalike. And then once you click on it, it'll actually capture all the details. Then again, it will redirect you to the original page. So what happens is you might think that you'll be asked to enter the details again. So in a hurry, a lot of us enter the details again. So in the first instance, it's a phished page. In the second instance, it's the original page. So there could be a lot of transactions that way. And never give out your PIN number in places. And more so when you're purchasing on international websites, do check the authenticity of the websites. Because recently I saw that a client of mine had actually purchased these N95 masks on a particular website based on the interaction on the social media. Because they wanted about 500 masks, and at a bulk price, okay, they got a good deal. They thought they'd close it. Okay, so they went up to this site. They were asked to click and then make the payment. They made, and immediately soon after that, they did not get a confirmation from them. And after that, when they tried to see about that particular person, he was no longer there on the social media. That website was not at all existing. So that being so, everybody, I think the cybercrimes are preying their eyes to, and being they're opportunistic. They would like to make use of every given situation in a different manner altogether. Yes, ethical hacking as a profession. See, ethical hacking is not legally permitted in India. So ethical hackers, whether you're a hacker with ethics or not, it's ultimately a crime in India. So instead of calling yourself as an ethical hacker, we call them under the garb of information security professionals. So without this, I think a lot of people are trying to promote ethical hacking programs, which is per se illegal. So whether you're a hacker with ethics or without ethics, it's nothing to the eyes of law. You're still a criminal. And what about HTTPS? Yes, S stands for secured, absolutely. But there are lots of security mechanisms that are now being targeted to remove that HTTPS, or to also, what do you say, exploit HTTPS. That's also turning out to be one of the great areas. Yeah, the liability of the consumer end will have in case the see, this is where the cyber law comes into picture. Everybody who's using this also has to be aware, just like how you need to be aware, no matter whether you're driving a cycle or a two-wheeler or a car, or let's say even a limousine. The moment you're going on the road, you need to be aware of traffic laws. Likewise, you need to be aware of cyber laws in case you're making use of computers, mobile phone, and the internet. So that's the scope. And you will have to prove that your due diligence is done. So how will you prove that your due diligence is done? You have used a secured server, you have used a secured app, you have not compromised on the password, you have done everything. You have not you have put a password in this, you have put in good strong password. These are all the measures that will that will have to be demonstrated before a court in case you are to prove your innocence. So that is one more area that you will have to look at. Any suggestions? Yes, there are lots of firms who are into this internships for cyber law, and then you could also take one of them. What are the symbols of lock, exclamation, and unlock beside the links of websites? Yeah, sometimes what happens is that, see, they're not certified, or they're not what do you say, their sites are not verified. So in some kinds of scenarios you may get that, and in some kinds of scenarios they may want to display their certificate. So that is also important aspect to talk about the authenticity of the website, basically. So this is where they come into picture. And the lock typically says it's not a secure website, typically. So these are some things that are likely to happen. Yes, it's a very vast phenomena, shall I say. And then there was a lot of fear among the people, because artificial intelligence and blockchain would replace lawyers. But I don't see that. They can aid lawyers, but thanks. If you look at the beautiful statement made by our Honorable Chief Justice of India, he has clarified, saying that artificial intelligence can be a good tool for justice dispensation, but cannot replace judges, is what Honorable CJI has told. I think that's a wonderful statement. I totally agree with them altogether. Sting operation video. Sting operation video depends. See, if there could be a challenge made with regard to now the privacy being made fundamental right, it could be challenging aspect. Secondly, if you are exposing certain private parts of an individual, it could amount to a violation of personal privacy. So that being so, yes, it could be one of the areas that you can look at. It could pose a lot of critical discussion, and then a lot of legalities need to be considered, even from a what do you say, cyber law perspective with regard to sting operations. Yes, it's a very good practice of changing credit card and debit card details, passwords frequently. It's just like the toothbrush. I would compare a password to be a toothbrush. So long as I'm sure that each one of you change your toothbrush often, you will not use the same brush again. So likewise, I'll say keep changing them, just like how you change your or more frequently than you change your toothbrushes. And at the same time, do not have same passwords for for all accounts. That could be exposing you to one in case one password gets out. I think all of your you could be totally stripped off your complete accounts per se. We are doing a variety of courses, Zashank. I think you can stay connected with the organizers to get more information regarding our courses.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for this session. Thank you so much. It actually, you have enlightened us on the various career options. And to the audience, I would like to say that we are coming up with the sir only as being our course instructor. We are coming up with the cyber law course on the artificial intelligence. So we will be releasing it very soon. So to stay connected with us, please, I'm just writing my phone number here. Just ping me a message. I'll add you guys in the group so that we all can stay connected. And the feedback form, there is no as such feedback form, but you guys can, if there is any feedback or anything, you guys can directly contact us on our various websites and various pages. Okay, so this is my phone number. Thank you so much, sir, for the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simarjit. Pleasure talking to all of you. And stay safe. And then let's be victorious against Corona. Let's also be cyber safe and let's just make this lockdown get over as fast as practically possible. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure talking to all of you here.
Thank you so much, everyone. That would be all for today.